Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear students, today we are going to study the third section of a hero. As you can see, a hero was written by Mr. R.K. Narayan. We read all about him in one of the previous sessions, and we read part of the story in the last two sessions. Today we will go on to the third session. Let's look at the comprehension answers from your last section. The first question was, why did Swami pretend to be asleep? The correct answer is, Swami was scared of sleeping alone in the office room. He thought that if his father found him asleep, he would not wake him up. So he tiptoed to bed and pretended to be asleep. This way he felt he could escape from sleeping alone in the office room. Like I told you before, the answer can be worded in many ways. So as long as you have the correct answer, which is what? That he wanted to pretend to be asleep so that his father would not wake him up. So instead of the word scared, you could always use afraid. Swami was afraid of sleeping alone. So depending on your vocabulary, please use some new words and write your own sentences. You just have to make sure your answer is correct and the sentences are grammatically correct. Let's go on to the next question. What did father do when he found Swami sleeping beside Granny? Father asked Swami to get up. When Swami did not get up, he pulled away the blanket and ordered Swami to get up. Swami had no choice but to get up and follow his father to the office room. Self-explanatory, very easy answer. Number 3, were there scorpions in the office room? The answer is no. There were no scorpions in the office room. Swami did not want to sleep there, so he tried to make excuses to convince his father that sleeping alone in the office room was not a good idea. The last question, why did Swami want a lamp burning in the room? Swami was afraid of the dark. You can write scared, afraid, whichever word you want to use. Swami was scared of the dark, so he wanted a lamp burning in the room. So all the questions, answers are on the screen. You can see them. And I'm sure you must have all got all of them correct because they are very straightforward questions. And if your wordings are different, doesn't matter. Actually, I prefer it if you write in your own words. That is always better than copying it from somewhere else. Now, before we go to the next section, which we are going to read now, I put the glossary on the screen, all the difficult words. Like I told you before, it's a good idea to look at all of them, make sure you know them, because having a good vocabulary is always a bonus for us. Humanity, all human beings. Strain of cruelty, quality of unkindness. Now all these meanings I have written as they are relevant to the lesson. The actual meanings might be slightly different, but these are the meanings which are pertaining to this particular lesson. So strain of cruelty in this case would be quality of unkindness. Spared, not harmed. Chum, a good friend. That is kind of like a slang. We normally don't use chum. Only in certain cases we would use that word. Spat out means throw out from the mouth. Spat is the past tense of spit. Spat out, threw out from the mouth. Faint, weak. Strayed, came. In this case, in this lesson, strayed means came. Crouched, lowered the body close to the ground. Reassuring, to make someone less frightened. Again, pertaining to this lesson. Encased, covered completely. Racked, suffered great mental pain or agony. Nightmare, frightening dream or a very scary dream. Desperately means without any hope, hopelessly. Gazing, looking steadily, horror, great shock of fear, mortal weapon, deadly weapon. So these are the words which I thought might be difficult for you, so I have listed them. If there are any other words which you find difficult, please refer your dictionary. And those who have difficulty with English, I'm sure you have your English to Kannada dictionary, which you can use and understand the vocabulary. Now let's go on to reading the lesson. Swami felt cut off from humanity. He was pained and angry. He did not like the strain of cruelty he saw in his father's nature. He hated the newspaper for printing the tiger story. He wished that the tiger had not spared the boy, who didn't appear to be a boy after all, but a monster. So now Swami has been forced to sleep in the office room by his father, and he feels that the reason this happened is this newspaper story. If the newspaper had not written that about the brave boy, he would not be in this situation. So he hated the newspaper for printing the tiger story, and he also wished that the tiger had killed and eaten the boy, because he was so angry with the boy. Because of that boy story, now he has been forced to sleep in the office room. Let's continue with the story. As the night advanced and the silence in the house deepened, his heart beat faster. He remembered all the stories of devils and ghosts he had heard in his life. How often his chum Mani had seen the devil in the banyan tree at his street end. And what about poor Munasami's father, who spat out blood because the devil near the river's edge slapped his cheek when he was returning home late one night? So as you can see, he's very scared. Swami is super scared. He's lying down in his father's office room. He's all alone. He's never slept alone in his life. He has always slept with his grandma, and now his father has made him sleep here. So he's terribly scared. So as the night advances, his heart beats faster because he is scared. And then when we are scared, we remember only the bad things that we all know. So he remembered all the stories of devils and ghosts he had heard from his friends and from others. And he also remembered about what Mani had said about the devil in the banyan tree, and also about another of his classmates, Munasami's father, who spat out blood because the devil near the river's edge slapped his cheek. So he was continuously being affected by so many bad stories. And so on his thoughts continued. He was faint with fear. A ray of light from the street lamp strayed in and cast shadows on the wall. Through the stillness, all kinds of noises reached his ears. The ticking of the clock, rustle of trees, snoring sounds, and some vague night insects humming. So his bad, unnecessary thoughts kept coming him and scaring him more and more, and he thought he was almost going to faint with fear. He was so scared, he thought he was going to faint. And then a slight light from the street lamp came inside, and then all kinds of shadows. He could see all kinds of shadows in the night. And also when it is dark in the middle of the night, we know that there is no noise anywhere. And even small noises like the ticking of the clock, the rustle of leaves, the sound of some birds or some insects outside, all that can be heard very well. So he heard all those noises, the tick-tock of the clock, the rustle of the leaves, the snoring sounds. Maybe his father and the servants were sleeping outside and they were snoring. And some vague, means you don't know which insect is making the noise. All kinds of insects humming outside. All those noises he could hear very well, and they made his fear even more. He covered himself so completely that he could hardly breathe. He was so scared that he covered himself with a blanket. Every moment he expected the devils to come up and carry him away. There was the instance of his old friend in the 4th class who suddenly disappeared and was said to have been carried off by a ghost to Siam or Nepal. So he's again tormented more and more by all kinds of bad things he had heard from friends. So he just thought, oh my God, some devil is going to come and carry me away. And he remembered again another incident of a fourth class classmate who suddenly disappeared, and everyone said he had been carried off by a ghost to Siam or Nepal. Swami hurriedly got up and spread his bed under the bench and crouched there. It seemed to be a much safer place, more compact and reassuring. He shut his eyes tight and encased himself in his blanket once again, and unknown to himself fell asleep, and in sleep was racked with nightmares. So all these dreams made him more and more scared, so he decided, let me sleep under the bench, it will feel safer. So he crouched under the bench and it felt more compact. And he shut his eyes tight and encased himself, covered himself in the blanket, and unknown to himself, he fell asleep. But even in his sleep, he was tormented by all kinds of bad dreams. Let's see what happens next. He was having the dream, remember, bad nightmares. A tiger was chasing him. His feet stuck to the ground. He desperately tried to escape, but his feet would not move. The tiger was at his back, and he could hear its claws scratch the ground. Scratch, scratch, and then a loud thud. Swami tried to open his eyes, but his eyelids would not open, and the nightmare continued. It threatened to continue forever. Swami groaned in despair. So, remember, he was thinking of the tiger story. So, in his dream, he dreamt about the tiger now. And as usual, the dreams are always bad when you are scared. So, in his dream, the tiger was chasing him and he could not escape, and it was almost ready to get him. And he was so scared that he could not even open his eyes. And he really groaned in despair. He made all kinds of noises because he was totally terrified. With a desperate effort, he opened his eyes. He put his hand out to feel his granny's presence at his side, as was his habit. But he only touched the wooden leg of the bench, and his lonely state came back to him. He sweated with fright. And now, what was this rustling? He moved to the edge of the bench and stared into the darkness. So as you can see, with great fear, he opened his eyes and he tried to feel his granny. That's what he would always do, because he always slept beside his granny. If he woke up in the night, he would feel his granny, make sure she was there, and he would feel comforted. But today he did that, and what did he feel instead of his granny? He caught hold of the leg of the bench, wooden leg. And then he remembered that he wasn't beside his granny, he was in the office room, and he got scared and he started sweating with fear. And then suddenly he heard a rustling noise, and he got scared again, and he moved to the edge of the bench and stared into the darkness. Something was moving down. He lay gazing at it in horror. His end had come. He realized that the devil would presently pull him out and tear him, and so why should he wait? As he came nearer, he crawled out from under the bench, hugged it with all his might, and used his teeth on it like a mortal weapon. So he saw what the rustling noise was in the darkness. He peeped and he saw some figure moving towards him, and because he had been thinking of devils and ghosts, he thought, this must be a devil, it's going to get hold of me and tear me to pieces or do something with me. So why should I wait? Before it can get me, let me do something to protect myself. So what does he do? He hugs the figure, and what does he use as a weapon? His teeth. He doesn't have anything else. So he bites as hard as he could, and that's where we end today. This session ends today. If you are interested, you can read further if you have the textbooks. I hope this lesson is clear to you all so far. It's a very interesting, entertaining piece. Now let's go to the key points. Swami was very upset that his father had forced him to sleep alone in the office room. He wished the tiger had not spared the brave lad. He wished the tiger had actually killed the boy. As night advanced, Swami became more and more frightened. He remembered the scary stories his friends had told him about ghosts and devils. The night sounds scared him. He got so scared that he spread the bed under the bench and tried to sleep there. Still, he was tormented by nightmares. He dreamt that a tiger was chasing him. He sweated in fear. He saw a figure moving down near him. He was convinced it was a ghost. He thought it would get him and tear him apart. In desperation, he hugged the figure and bit it very hard. So I give you the key points so that when you read them, you can understand the story better to jot your memory. Now I have listed some comprehension check questions for you. You have to answer the questions in 5 or 6 sentences at least in a paragraph. Number 1, narrate Swami's experience when he slept alone in his father's office room. Number 2, describe in your own words Swami's dreadful experience when he was lying under the bench. So for the first question, you have to write the answer starting from the time his father leaves him in the office room. You have to write it briefly because you have to write it in 5 or 6 sentences. Maybe you can write it in 7 or 8, but not more than that. Here, the second question, you have to write about what happens after he lies under the bench. So there's a little bit of a difference. Maybe the last couple of lines will be the same for both of them, but try to frame your sentences so that both of them look different. Please answer the above questions in your notebook before the next session, and make sure when you answer the questions, you start the sentences with capital and with full stop. Write everything very neatly in your notebooks. So I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you and Sai Ram.